Sir John, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, we need some of your common sense. This government is so wrong on so many things. Every time the Prime Minister goes abroad, which is quite a lot of the time, he gives our money and our powers away and seems to take leave of his senses. I'm very worried going to Brussels, he's going to give away all sorts of concessions simply to get talks. It's always the EU strategy. Hang tough, make Britain submit, and then say, well, maybe we might find a crumb from the table after you've sent us a full meal.
Yeah, because they've never forgiven Britain, have they, really? I mean, Emmanuel Macron is apparently, according to the Times this morning, is going to tell the UK to eat humble pie on Brexit. It's almost as if, you know, they're not content with having a conversation. They want us to be supplicants to them. They want us to kind of bow down and you know, praise the European Union as this great organisation, which, frankly, it never has been and very much isn't now.
No, well, that's right. And they always want a very bad deal for us. I mean, what do they want this time? They want to grab more of our fish, and we're still letting them have too many with their super trawlers doing considerable damage. They'll probably want some more of our money. I expect they'd quite like us to go back into the Erasmus student scheme, which meant that we paid for many of their young people to come to Britain, and we didn't get so much money for our people to go abroad. Yes. And of course, that scheme didn't allow our students to go to America or Australia, whereas our new scheme, the Brexit scheme, Turing, the money all goes to British students and they can go to any world university. We don't want to reverse those gains. We need more of those Brexit-type wins from a government that believes in ourselves and wants our country to prosper.
Right. Well, because a lot of people telling me this morning, Sir John, that, you know, we should be looking across the Atlantic, which is our biggest trading partner. We should be looking to the United States and President Trump as a sort of a guide as to what we should be doing on defence, what we should be doing on immigration, what we should be doing on trade. But instead he's gone the other way.
Yeah, and it's crazy. He's trying to rebuild his relationship with Trump because he and his colleagues did everything they could to undermine it, both by bad-mouthing President Trump before the election, and then, of course, sending Labour people in to try and stop him getting elected. So they've got a lot of rowing back to do. I'm glad that Lord Mandelson has issued an apology. But on top of that, you don't then incense Trump, who is very angry with asymmetric trade with the EU. He thinks they cheat all the time. And now we're trying to get closer to their trade position. Well, that's just the wrong thing to be doing.
Exactly right. Well, President Trump has said overnight, in fact, that I think there's a $350 million deficit between the US and the EU. I think we can watch that and let's see what he has to say.
Well, we're going to see what happens. It'll happen, but we're going to, we'll see how things work out. It might happen with them, but it will definitely happen with the European Union, I can tell you that. Prime Minister Starmer has been very nice. We've had a couple of meetings. We've had numerous phone calls. We're getting along very well. And we'll see whether or not we can balance out our budget. With the European Union, it's $350 billion deficit. So obviously something's going to take place there.
$350 billion deficit. And also, you know, he knows very well, does he not, that the European leaders, as such as they are at the moment, are not very big fans of Donald Trump. And in fact, most of them have said very derisory things about him. But the world is taking notice of these tariffs that he's putting on China and Canada and Mexico. And we need to make sure that he doesn't put them on Britain, right?
Exactly right. And we could be much more positive. Now, I've been urging this government to take a draft free trade treaty to America. We can do that now. We're not in the EU. The EU was never willing or able to make compromises to have a free trade agreement with America because they were winning with their asymmetric trade and their silly rules. They're now going to get their comeuppance because Trump is going to call their bluff. We need to be very positive about the American relationship. You know, this growth race that Reeves wants to join, and we haven't joined properly yet, why on earth are we trying to back the losing horse, slow growth Europe? German economy hasn't grown at all for 2 years, and not backing the winning horse, which is America romping away with now double the GDP per head of the EU. Surely you want to be learning from the winners.
Well, you would think. And I mean, our unfortunately hapless Chancellor, who goes from sort of, you know, bad to worse every single week, Rachel Reeves, she suddenly now decided that growth is her new thing. She used to say that the economy in Britain was in a terrible state and she'd inherited a £22 billion black hole. Now she reckons that by building a sort of fictitious third runway in 25 years, everybody's going to go, oh, brilliant, fantastic, let's all put some more money into the economy. Unfortunately, AstraZeneca don't agree. They've just cancelled a £450 million investment that they were going to make under the Tories in a vaccine manufacturing plant up in Liverpool.
Yeah, absolute disaster for Labour, because it was a success of the outgoing government that they'd attracted this very big pharmaceutical development, and more importantly, attracted it to Liverpool. And what this new government has done is they've lost investment, and all their new investment schemes are going to be around London and the South East. It's 3 new enlarged airports in the South East, and this new link, Cambridge to Oxford, with loads of housing within the triangle down to London. Yeah. So it's all southeastern investment. And they've lost this really big industrial investment for the Northwest, which had been hard won.
Yes.
It's a disaster.
It is a disaster, and so many companies now are issuing warnings. We got one this morning in the Telegraph, the EY Item Club, which apparently is a sort of a financial organisation. I can't say I'm familiar with it, but they're basically saying that the growth outlook for 2025 has been slashed now. Business confidence at an all-time low. Much of the blame pinned on the budget, basically, because we haven't even seen the damage from that yet, as national insurance rises kick in April and minimum wage rises kick in April. You know, I speak to companies every day, as I'm sure you do, Sir John, who say we're not even sure we can survive. You know, I was in a very well-known restaurant last week where they do very good business and they turn over quite a lot of money and they pay an awful lot of tax, and they said basically the national insurance and the minimum wage rises will completely wipe out any profit they made in 2024.
Well, this is the danger, and as you rightly say, they're beginning to plan where they're going to be from April, when they have these huge extra bills that the taxman is going to send them. And we see already that the vacancies have dropped off because they think, well, I'm not going to go out and hire anybody. We're now going to see them shedding labour. I hope they do it by voluntary means, but some of them may have compulsory redundancies as well. And the high street is going to be torn apart by this because they cannot afford all those extra costs of employing people. And they're discovering that trade is down because it's not just business confidence that has been badly hit, but consumer confidence has been a bit hit as well. And so shop sales are very disappointing. She's got to cancel those tax rises, Mike. Yeah. And then if you say, well, how do you pay for that? It's pretty easy. I mean, the Bank of England has sent a bill for £30 billion of losses already this year. Stop the Bank of England losing all this money. Why is it so difficult? The ECB isn't losing all that money. The Fed isn't losing all that money because they don't go selling bonds at huge losses in the way the Bank of England is.
Well, exactly right. And I mean, in December alone, this government borrowed £17.8 billion, which is mostly going to be used to pay interest rates rather than anything that's going into the economy or anything that's going into public services. And it's this never-ending spiral. It's like, you know, if you had a credit card that you maxed out and you just went and asked for more credit and you just keep spending money that you don't have.
Well, indeed, and they've got a nationalised sector, not just the Bank of England, losing a fortune. Post Office has lost 1,800 million in the last few years, and they still haven't got a turnaround plan to stop that. The railways that you've been talking about, it's not just all the money they spend on sending out silly instructions on how to speak, but it's that they don't attract enough fare-paying passengers, or they only attract passengers on massive discounts, and so they're running huge losses. And all the government wants to do is to take on more of the losses for the taxpayer by nationalising the rest of them.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a shocking state of affairs. And just finally, Sir John, I don't know if you had a chance to read any of the tidbits this weekend in this new book called Get In by Gabriel Pogrom and Patrick Maguire. It's quite an extraordinary picture that is painted of this current Prime Minister, who appears to be a cross between sort of a loner, a human rights lawyer, somebody who thinks he needs a voice coach to make him speak badly. I mean, my favourite analogy is that he's the guy sitting at the front of the Docklands Light Railway thinking he's driving the train when in fact it's automatic.
Yeah, I think it's a good analogy. And yes, I'm very worried that he's a bad international lawyer and he needs to become a Prime Minister pretty quickly because he always wants to give away everything. Yeah. From the United Kingdom to overseas interests as soon as any kind of legal challenge in the international courts. I mean, Chagos is another disaster. No. We can't afford $9 billion over the next few years to give away an island which is ours and we ought to keep. And that's another thing that has deeply offended Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So come on, Rachel Reeves, cancel the $9 billion, tell Mauritius they're not getting the islands, and we can live a lot happier and a bit richer.
Yeah. Well, what a good piece of advice. Sir John Redwood speaking common sense on a Monday morning. Nothing like it. Thank you very much indeed. Sir John Redwood, former Conservative government minister. They've got some lovely pictures coming in, by the way. I'm not trying to turn this into Radio 2 or anything, but, I mean, it is an incredible sunrise out there. One from Joe. Good morning, Mike. Misty and frosty start in East Sussex, and then a glorious sunrise. There's that one. Another one from Jimmy. A picture of my son on a beach in Goa, listening to your fantastic show. Thank you very much indeed for that. And also one from Katie. Sunrise also amazing here on the Wirral. Absolutely remarkable. Let's get another voice note from Tony.
Morning, Michael. Just watching your show this morning, and I've noticed a particular, let's say, ganging up on Keir Starmer. And I, for one, think he speaks impeccable. And, you know, it's not right, all this bullying, tantamount to far right, which it's just bullying. And I've got to hang up now. See you soon.
Thank you, Tony.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, I'm gone.
Oh, my goodness me. Isn't it remarkable? I mean, imagine needing a voice coach to make you sound that robotic. That is the problem, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. Good morning, Mike. The reason why Trump is doing the tariffs is he wants to stop tax in the USA. And this is his goal. If he can do this, every American will be better off by £30,000 a year every year. A lot of economists have said this is the golden age for the USA. And that's from Simon in Essex. Well, I'm not sure they're going to be that much better off. But certainly, Reem Ibrahim was here. She doesn't like the idea of tariffs because she's an old-fashioned libertarian, doesn't think there should be any restriction on free movement or free goods or anything like that, and free trade. However, if a country like China is undermining businesses in this country or undermining, surely, industries in this country, like the car industry, then surely you have to protect those car industries because you have to protect the jobs. I don't see a problem with that whatsoever. Yes, I think it's good that we are offered the opportunity to buy tomatoes from Morocco, and I don't think the EU should be putting a tariff on them so that we can buy the tomatoes that are being sold here. But, you know, the tomatoes from Morocco shouldn't be undermining the tomatoes that are grown in this country. But if they're being grown in Spain, what's the difference? Just because they're in the EU. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, we're going to speak to Lucy Beresford, who's a psychologist. She's going to be telling us about what can only be described as inveterate liars, compulsive liars, and people who just continually cannot tell the truth. You might figure out why we're asking her that question in a moment. This is Talk.